the what do you call it, join and like be able to log in. So we had, oh gosh, 11 have already come in. We had about 214, including us. So we will see how we go. Let's see. Let's see if I can. Oh, okay, I need to go up.
I think we need to message Lori because.
All right, yes.
She's here, but her video is not on. Okay,
yes.
I see her.
Well, the terrifying thing is that I'm realizing that Tina and Tuba's English is better than mine. So I'm.
Hi, Laurie.
Okay, Dr. Norris, you're so not allowed to do that during this.
Here,
Right?
anyone.
Otherwise, I'm just going to end up cracking in laughter the whole time. Okay. You're fabulous. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
I will behave if I can. All I know is I definitely need a haircut.
Thank you. Hi, Laurie. Thank you for making the time for us. And
I'm not able to hear anyone.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hold on, let me disconnect my Bluetooth just to make sure.
Okay. And then we will roll in 1 minute with our little countdown. So,
yay!
I'm the student here waiting to learn from all of you amazing friends.
We will learn from each other as well.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I've got it now, Tina.
You can hear it. Brilliant. Thank you so much. So we have a few seconds to go. So if anybody wants to have a cup of water, tea, I have a whole little table behind my laptop there full of tea, water, and everything else behind me. So, right. So it is exactly 4 o'clock here in UK. And thank you so much to each and every one of you who have made time to be with us this afternoon. I have with me a few of my many amazing friends who have also made time to come and be with us this afternoon. But before we just go into that, I just wanted to take a moment and really welcome every single one of you, both our panelists and our participants. Thank you again. With regards to Nations of Women, we really have a very simple mandate, and that is to change the systemic issues with regards to poverty that women face globally. So our mandate is two-pronged, is poverty and systemic justice for women, whether it's education, whether it's around health, whether it's around family, whatever that looks like for a woman is being part of the framework and support network that allows the woman to be able to have a difference in their lives. So what do? We seek to inspire, we enable women with resources, we empower women, and most importantly, we connect women strategically in order to allow them and empower them, be the wind beneath their wings in being able to spearhead systemic change across their nations. How we do that is providing resources, whether it's education, whether it's forums, platforms such as where we are today, where we get to learn from one another. We create a safe environment that you can bring your questions, whatever that is, and we would be able to find a way to have what we call the conversations for change that helps us to change our mindset, helps us to change ourselves, our personal development, how we lead, how we are as women, because I believe we're unique. All equally, men are unique, but I think women we're like really unique anyway. So we would go into any more of the unique features, but I know that we're all unique. So thank you again for coming. And I usually open us by saying the nations have gathered. because we stand as nations of women. So the nations have gathered and the people have assembled. So you're all welcome. Now, I would like each of my amazing friends and speakers here to just take a moment and to introduce yourselves. And while you're introducing yourself, maybe you want to share a little bit about your journey into, leadership, basically, because I see all of you as women in leadership and men in leadership in your own community, your home, and in your nation. So in no particular order, because I'm just going to go through, I have different sheets around me here. So depending on where my eyes are looking, your name would come. So if I may start with you, Laurie, if you'd like to take a moment, please, and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Well, hello from the United States. It's good to see your smiling face and nice to meet all of you. My name is Laurie Kirshner. I am the founder and owner of LMK Advocacy. That is a lobbying and government affairs consulting firm. I work primarily in the state of Ohio, but I also do work in Washington, D.C. as well. I represent nonprofits, medium to large size businesses, really we operate as their voice to our elected officials, both here in the state and in the US Capitol. So it's a very exciting time, as you can imagine, here in the US. There's a lot going on. As by the way of background, my background is in politics, of course. I did a great deal of campaign work prior to entering into the private sector lobbying side of things. Spent a lot of time just from the smallest local race up to the statewide gubernatorial races, running political campaigns, which is exciting but also exhausting. I can tell you that I have always known that I wanted to be a lobbyist and work in this capacity since I was a junior in high school. And so I've always been kind of working towards this path, and owning my own company and doing this on my own is really a dream come true, to be able to advocate on behalf of people and on behalf of causes that I care about and I believe in. So it's really great to meet all of you. I'm also a mom. I've got 2 young girls. I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. My husband runs a chamber of commerce here in our region, and that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to be well behaved and go by what I sent to you so that there would be order here. So Wendy, if I can come to you, please, and if you take a moment to introduce yourself to us, that would be brilliant. Thank you. I think you're muted.
Hey, Laurie, I'm from Ohio too.
No way.
I'm Wendy Diamond. I'm from a small town in Ohio as well. Well, I don't know if you came from a small town, but 2,500 person. Yeah. So I'm from a small town in Ohio, 2,500 people. I live in New York City right now. I am a big advocate for animal rescue. I created the first media company to promote animal rescue and lifestyle for pets called Animal Fair. I'm also the founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, which we're in 144 countries to empower women in business to alleviate poverty. And as well as I am also the founder of LDP Ventures, and I invest in impact, anything that's going to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're really, really thrilled to have you as well. And if I can come back to you, Tuba, please, to introduce yourself to us, that would be brilliant. Thank you so much.
Hi there. Greetings from Jeddah. A great thank you to Dr. Tina for bringing all these amazing spirits together. I am an explorer of the human endeavor, and this is what I love to do across the globe. It so happens entrepreneurship is part of my DNA. I started my first official business and made my big bucks at age 14, and from there on did not stop. My father, which is very strange in the Middle East, had set up his first company in my name. Even though he was an engineer and he didn't run the company, he just made the CR with the letterheads and said, "You're going to run this one day." And that was my role model. We didn't have a lot of women, and we still don't in leadership positions. It was too hard to imagine anybody balancing act family commitments and community, and that's what we're here to discuss today. Promoting female leadership, empowerment, entrepreneurship, angel investment, and mentoring in the region led me to become a government advisor, and that's what I've been doing for a very long time. In my current role, I'm also the lucky GM of Avon Beauty Arabia. For those of you that know Avon Cosmetics, I also run it in 13 parts of the country with 14,000 workforce, and I'm enjoying that as my part-time hobby on top of my other duties. And my largest project right now is trying to triple the revenue of Jeddah City for the municipality of Jeddah and privatization of a lot of the government sectors here in Saudi Arabia, including healthcare, energy, and of course, infrastructure. I look forward to the session, and thank you, Dr. Tina, for having me on board.
Thank you again for being a part of our time together this afternoon. And Yolanda, please introduce yourself to us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tina. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am Yolanda Mabuto, all the way from Africa, South Africa to be specific. Yay! I am the founder of Divine Growth Solutions, which is an organization within the energy sector and also gender equality. That's one of the things that we are addressing in Africa. Some of the initiatives that we've come up with is the Women Power Boss, which is exactly making sure that women are empowered and they're really given opportunities to lead and to have access where there are barriers. I'm also the founder of Globe, which is the Global Evolution for business who are for women rather who are in business, while also struggling because the Women Power Boss was only for the energy sector, but the Globe is more for every sector because we want to advocate for women in the parliament as well as within the government. I'm also the chairperson of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers, where we are looking to ensure that entrepreneurship and innovation is really taken seriously, especially during the COVID times where people are losing their jobs. They need to know there are platforms that can support their initiatives with regards to entrepreneurship and ideas that are innovative that they have. I happen to be the international partner for the World Business Angel Investment Forum as well, where again, the agenda is to make sure that there's finance inclusion and digital inclusion for women and startups. So this is in a nutshell who I am, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue that is going to be in this place. Thank you.
Thank you again. And last but not the least, our warrior, Norris. Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself to us. Thank you.
Warrior?
Yes.
Do I look that beaten up? Okay, good. That's just old age. I wear many hats. Yesterday's hat was scholar hat. Later day will be my educator hat. But much of what I focus on now is working on on ecosystem building, and primarily helping those who are trying to build healthy entrepreneurial ecosystems. And which is and so this is a very timely topic because that inclusion is incredibly important, and figuring out how to get there is something that I'm here to learn from you guys. Finding out that I'm being surrounded by fellow Ohioans. I currently live in Boise, Idaho, and I'm just really excited and honored and a little scared to be here. So.
Thank you. Well, we will try not to make you scared. Plus, I am 1,001 miles away from you, so you're safe. Well, thank you again, each and every one of you, for that wonderful.
Tina?
Yes.
So that's not your armed drone outside my window?
That'd be telling.
Okay.
It's secret. Secret, but you're safe. That's the most important thing, that you're safe. So thank you again. So just before we move in, a little bit of housekeeping. We do have a Q&A section. So anybody who has any questions, please put the questions into the Q&A section. And then there is the chat box as well, which we would be utilizing. We may have questions that we want you to, engage, because this is a place for all of us to engage. So if there is any thoughts, any aha moments that you have, then please put that into the chat box so that other people may be able to learn from your aha moments as well. But any questions that you get, I know all of you sent in incredible, wonderful questions. We will try and run through as many as we can, given the time we have. But if there's any question that's really, really burning question for you, then please put that in the Q&A, because we do have a live Q&A that we would pick those up. So my name is Tina Alton. I'm the CEO and president here at Nations of Women. I live in London. I have 7 children, 1 granddaughter, 1 husband, 2 cats. I wear, triple, quadruple, too many hats to count, but my background is in education, psychology, and I started in the education sector, really doing change management, going into schools, failing schools predominantly, and then turning them around, give it to new leadership, and then go to the next school, until I got married. And then my husband's like, oh, I need help, can you come and help me? So I left my educational role and then went into healthcare to support him to build his business, which is private healthcare. So we run a number of private clinics here in London, and from then it's like going back into empowering women, working with women. I mean, who likes to work with women? Tell me, the hormones, the drama, but somebody has to do it. So there we are. I got pulled into that again and just, put myself into just pouring into other women, because I'm sure that each and every one of us have got to where we are because somebody, poured into us, somebody, connected us, somebody showed us something, or somebody opened the door for us. So whenever we have the opportunity to be that somebody to another woman, I welcome that. So that is that. When I'm not doing all of these and I'm mommy, I love to cook, I love to make cakes, wedding cakes, Barbie cakes, whatever you name it, I'll make it for you. But don't tell the secret to my mother-in-law. She says that she makes the world's best scones, but I disagree. I think I make the world's best scones. So anytime any of you are here in London, let me know and I will treat you to an afternoon tea with scones and cream. So that's enough from me. We're going to go straight into why we're here this evening. And I want to start with some of the questions we received in is really looking at what actually makes like real leadership, what difference does women leadership make? And when we're doing the research, we realize that more and more, I think globally, women are taking up leadership roles. However, we are still well below where, it's like where we could be, given that women, I think one of the ladies said we're like inherently equipped to create solutions, to be able to think fast on our feet. If it's like wherever you're walking, whether it's a child, and you're able to utilize the instinct, oh, I'm not quite sure, so not that our men don't, I think, but naturally there is a lot more of that. However, women in leadership is not as advanced or as far as much as it could be in 2020. So I wanted to take a moment and share with us, as a leader that I look up to, what would you say if our participants on here, what kind of roles or opportunities would you advise them to consider taking, like as stepping stones, if you will, into leadership? And whilst you're answering that, perhaps you can also look at what real difference does female or women leadership make?
Sorry, are you asking that to me?
Yes, please.
Yes, sorry, I didn't hear my name. My apologies. So thank you for the question. It is a very important one, because as we start off on, even in choosing our education sector, sometimes we feel inclined for what appears to be a more feminine sector, and we think that's where progress will happen. So a lot of the women go for science, med, law, and they avoid engineering and deep tech and architecture and so forth, where they think it's mainly male dominant. What I found out is, so my undergraduate is in child psychology and computer science and engineering. I did go into the computer science and engineering at a time where there were not a lot of women, but the banks in the kingdom were opening up their computing departments. Even though I chose to study what's a core business that purely functions on technology, statistics, and data. And at the time, I realized it's, our country's largest organization, Aramco. The minute I appeared, they said, oh my God, a female, computer scientist, we want you in IT. I told them, I know where you want me and need me, but what I want to do is your core business. What exactly is your core business? Oh, it's drilling and finding oil. So don't you have any tech there? And they were like, yeah, we have experimental testing of, GoCAD systems or simulations of where to drill and how much oil should come out. I said, thank you, I want to be there, but that's 3 grades lower. I said, no, I want to be there. And because I was there, I was promoted within 1 year 3 times. They had to expand the policy, and I became the first Saudi female to be in strategic planning in Saudi Aramco. So to be able to make the choice that's right for you, not just, I don't want to say this because maybe not everybody has the opportunity. I didn't have any cash. I had 3 kids on my back at the time, but I had to make sure I'm in a place that if I put effort and time away from my home, that was going to turn into a sustainable income. And from there, my career took off, because as I was ready to do that, other people were saying, well, we have this other thing that requires your attention. And I got used to being the only female in the room for a while, till I was able to bring other women in with me and train and take off. So my suggestion for what roles to choose would be the ones where wherever you go to apply, what's your core business? Find out about what you're going to do that's fundamental for the development of the economy, and choose your path regardless of what your education is. And on what, on the second part of your question, it is ultimately difficult to be a leader, male or female, because the more responsibility you have, the more authority you have, the more accountability you have. And not everyone is ready to take on what comes with accountability. The ability to hire people and fire people, that's a very difficult thing to do. I couldn't fire anybody for the first 20 years of my career. It was just too much on my conscience. I would rather keep them at a distant job. So learning what needs to be done for efficiency, optimization, progress, innovation in a company, ultimately is very difficult for whatever is the background of the leader. And you need to build yourself in that. And for that, I have something called continuous education. I take a certificate every year from any university around the world. I travel for it. I spend 1/3 my salary always on my self-education. And, I make sure I raise my next leader right next to me. So if I'm always passing on the learning, not just to one person, but at least a group of 3 at a time, so that if I'm occupied, there's always somebody I can delegate to. And raising leaders is a part of our responsibility. Have I answered your question? Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you for that. Really, I remember as well, during the beginning of my career, not really being aware of what would be the best decision for me. And it wasn't until I found the courage to actually go for the interview that I realized, oh, okay, so I can, and then I started making plans. And like yourself, when it comes to firing women, it's like, oh my gosh, but she's got kids, oh my gosh, she's going to have, so it's not easy, but you know, I think that times are changing, and that probably wasn't, for me anyway, may not have been the best decisions, because it's a family business and it causes, you know, problems with the husband. It's like, okay, that shouldn't be, you know, the way. And thankfully it's like, well, you can do that, because I can't do that. But thank you so much for that. So really, you know, thinking again, and Laurie, I'm looking to you, particularly with the pandemic. And I mean, it was just crazy. I put my hand up and say that at one point I was overwhelmed with the volume of what I had to do. I had to be teaching my kids at school. I had to be responsible for the health and well-being of my staff, my team, my business, the family, my parents-in-law who are both in their 80s, right? And then for myself as well. And so even before we came to the pandemic, I think generally, in the family setting, women globally are predominantly responsible for family, or, well, the demands from the family and the pressure that it comes with. And I see you and your daughters, and you have a full life. So how do you do it? How, you know, what's your advice to women in terms of how a woman in leadership, how should they like prioritize? How should they organize, you know, finding themselves in this situation, particularly now with, given the pandemic and the pressure, extra pressure that, you know, we all are facing?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great question, Tina. And you know, the pandemic has absolutely changed the dynamic of all of our lives, parents or not, workers or not, whatever field you're in, it has changed how we live and how we do everything. So in March, where we live, the world kind of shut down. So school was canceled. All of the businesses shut down. We were told not to leave our homes, basically. And our children were suddenly thrust into online learning. And when you are a working parent, and you're trying to balance your business with your home life, and you're all in the same space. So my husband was also home at this time. So that added another interesting dynamic. All of a sudden we were all here on top of each other, trying to work, trying to do school, trying to not go crazy, right? Trying to stay healthy. So we really had to, it was rough for a few weeks. We had to kind of figure out what was going to work for us. And finally we did. And I would say the biggest thing for me has been giving myself and giving others grace. Mm-hmm. I think that too often we have unreasonable expectations of ourselves as business people, as employees, as parents, as spouses. We think we need to be great at everything. And I dealt with that for a long time. I carried a lot of guilt. If I'm working too much, I'm not being a good parent. If I'm, you know, too involved with my kids, I'm not being a good business person. You know, how do we let go of that guilt and give ourselves grace, I think is immensely important. But as a rising leader, I think you need to choose an environment and in a culture that is going to support you being able to achieve and do what you want to do in your life. So before you join a new organization, before you go to a new company, find out what that culture is. Find out, talk to other people who work there. Find out, are you going to be able to leave to go to your child's soccer game if you need to? If someone calls sick, the school calls and you need to go pick them up. If you have a parent, an aging parent, I dealt with this in the past year as well. You know, are you going to be in an environment that is going to be conducive to you having that flexibility? I think is really important. And I think we're seeing a change, especially as a result of the pandemic. So many organizations that did not have flex policies, did not have work from home policies, you're seeing a huge shift now. You're seeing a huge shift now. I've talked to so many CEOs who have said, you know, I didn't think this was going to work, but it is. And we're going to change how we offer flex time policies and work from home policies for our staff, because we are seeing that they can and are being productive. And that allows, I think, for me anyway, having that flexibility is worth so much more than a financial incentive. There's so much value in having the ability to have balance in your life and working in a culture that supports and encourages that. And encourages that. So for me, I try to foster that within my own business. The people who work for me know family first always. I will never be upset if you have a family commitment that you need to go to. And I try to do everything I can to always support them in any way that I can outside of just financially. So I think that's, you know, how do we do it? I don't know. You wake up every day and you just kind of figure it out. But I think it's giving yourself grace. Stop striving for perfection all of the time. My children know and respect that I work. So if they come home and I'm still working, they know the doors are locked and not to bother me unless it's a medical emergency. So, you know, you set up boundaries, you set up expectations, and you do what you need to do for yourself. You know, I can't take care of this house and work and raise my family. So I have found, I have someone who cleans, or maybe you have someone who mows your grass, or, you know, I have a virtual assistant who helps me with all of the things that were starting to fall through the cracks. You just find what works for you and you do what works for you, and it's going to be different for everyone.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I think what I learned from that, what I'm taking from that is that we're now in the time and season that as a leader, if there is one thing we can do for ourselves is learning to ask for help.
Yes.
Learning to ask for help, which is like always so hard and challenging for me for the longest time I could think of, and really stepping into leadership's like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? But it's the most freeing thing that you can do for yourself as a woman, as a leader, is asking for help and really giving yourself that grace as well. So thank you. I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to come to you, Wendy. We had a question that actually was directed specifically for you, Wendy, and that was, you know, I want to ask Wendy, I'm reading like how they've written. I want to ask Wendy, I would like to improve my leadership skills in business. What should I do for that? And I'm going to bump that up with, you know, if any of us here as women want to improve their leadership skills in business, one, what should they be doing for that? And number two, what should be the innate traits of a leader? So as a leader, what, you know, would you say is a leader's best assets? So. Did I lose Wendy?
Oh, I don't know why. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, there. Sorry. Thank you so much. I was like, all right. So first of all, I mean, thank you again, Tina, for allowing me to be here and everything like that. So first of all, you know, when you thinking about just leadership, right? What is leadership? It's about really having confidence and having purpose and passion for whatever you're doing, right? Because if you really believe in something, you're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, right? Because, you know, it's about this innate thing inside you that's like driving you, right? So, you know, one of the things that, you know, I think is really important, and one of the things you mentioned to me earlier was, you know, understanding, you know, that people might have, you know, have a lack of confidence in funding, right? And it, you know, when you think about leadership and understanding that, and you think of the world of women in business and et cetera, you know, 2% of venture dollars go towards women founders, right? 2%, that means 98% goes towards men who are founders, right? Entrepreneurs, which is really the reason why in 2013, I launched the Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization, because at that time, not many people were talking about women in business and, you know, women entrepreneurs, right? And I ended up in Honduras on vacation, not realizing it was the murder capital of the world, where I really spent an amazing amount of time with women who are receiving microloans that were really living in poverty, and what these microloans were doing to change them. But one of the things I learned, which was like the most important thing that drives me every day, is when women earn these microloans, they're paying them back at a 98% rate, men in the 60%. And that, you know, 90% of that money goes to educate their children and provide for their families, which, you know, betters the entire community. But also when women are empowered in business, they have self-confidence and dignity. They don't allow human rights violations, right? And it's an important aspect to this. So I think, you know, like with leadership skills and going back to that, I think, you know, right now there's no better time in history, right? You've got Harvard University, you've got Stanford, you've got the best universities in the world offering free courses, right? So today you could just learn about how to be a great leader, how to learn anything that you want to do. You've got Coursera, you've got Khan Academy. And with all this, it's so important, right? And, you know, another way I think that people could really, you know, gain knowledge, and which I personally do, it's hard for me to like read a long book, is like, you know, watching YouTube or like, you know, watching Netflix, because there's so many incredible movies out there about business leaders and about like, you know, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and all these things and how they did it, right? One of my favorites is Chuck Feeney. He was the founder of the duty-free shops. He's a billionaire and he gave all of his money away. So it kind of, I feel like you can learn every day about everything. And so I think that's like the most important thing that people can do right now is take this extra time we have, which is the greatest asset we have, and really learn new skills and learn all about how, you know, whatever you're trying to learn or do or start, etc. There's no better time in that we have the ability right now just to go online and learn right away. I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And it's very true. I actually downloaded an app. It's called edX, EDX, edX. And they had a whole ton of different, you know, courses that you could take in writing your phone, right? So again, I couldn't agree more in terms of if you want to improve your leadership skills, there's an abundance. And again, technology makes that easy for us. So one tip, download an app from the App Store or Google Play Store called edX. Yeah, I think it's edX it's called. Yes, edX, ED and then capital X. And you can just sign up for free courses on more or less any subject at all that you can think of. So I hope that somebody will download that and will benefit from it. If you do, email me and let me know. So thank you again. Yolanda, I'm coming to you from the heart of Africa, South Africa. I'm coming to South Africa next year, by the way. I think we're all coming to South Africa. So, you know, I grew up in Ghana, which is West Africa, and did my first degree before, you know, eventually coming to London. So I would say my formative years and everything was formed whilst in Africa. And I really did watch, like my mom used to run, you know, a multi-million-dollar business, but when she was at home, she was invincible. I could not understand how and why that when the minute she steps out, oh, Mama Mercy, you know, like her name is Mercy and Mama means like mom or Auntie Mercy. Everybody, you know, is like looking up to, but the minute the gate was closed, she was not visible. So, you know, thinking back to, I remember that made me think, you know what, I don't even know if there's any point being a leader, you know, like, because if I'm not going to be seen beyond where I matter most, then what's the point? But I know that's not how it is, because I know Africa has had the most number of female presidents globally. UK, in our entire history, we've had 2. Margaret Thatcher, how many years in between before we had Theresa May? United States, 0, right? And then other countries as well. So I know that it's so much difference now, right? But again, there is still a long way to go. So I wanted to share with us, just really thinking to, you know, particularly with the focus on Africa, what roles or opportunities would you advise women to take as stepping stones to the top? And also on the side of that is, what are the innate traits of a female leader, or what should be a leader's best assets as an African woman?
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Tina. It is really important for leaders to be able to be seen for what they are doing, because as leaders, we add value in some way or another. And I think in Africa today, we can safely say only 5% of CEOs of major companies are women. And that's a progress that we can be happy about. And we can progress, we can do more. And what I think what we need to do as women in Africa is to really step up into those roles that we would not necessarily step up into. And mentioning women in parliaments is one of the things that women should be looking at in stepping up in leadership roles. And we've seen quite an impressive change in Africa, where we see in some countries almost 50% of parliamentaries are women, and that's great. But we can do better than that, because we have young leaders who are coming up on board that can take up these spaces. And I mean, we are focusing, yes, on STEM, subjects and other, muscular, sectors, but we should also look into areas where we as women can make the change we want to see, because we've got a goal. We've got the goal that needs to be able to close the gender gap. And if we want to do that, we need to put women in the forefront. We need these positions that are making decisions that are impacting women right on top. And women should be on top. And women should be vocal. They should find their voices and be able to make that change. And what I think also needs to be done by women is to also play a role in the policy making, because we can't have people making policies about us. What do they know about women? They might know a certain percentage, but we know women more than, any other gender, because we're women. So women should also take leadership position, not necessarily business position. Let's say you want to lead in a governance perspective role. These are the roles that I would really, really, really say women take up those spaces, because as we want to see the change, we need to be the change we want to see. Because I believe in that quote that our late President Nelson Mandela says, be the change you want to see in the world. And those changes will be driven by women. And those changes, we have platforms where women can really take spaces and make changes that will impact the next generations. Because what we're doing now is really not for us. We're doing this for the next generation. Yes, there were women who were here before us. They've paved this way, because I'm sitting here in a global platform today because women who marched in South Africa way back, they've made this possible for me. So my role as a woman who is in leadership position today is to do that and more, to make sure that the ones who are coming after me are able to take up spaces. And women and young leaders should take up, opportunities to lead and make sure that they make their voices heard, not in a very harsh way, but in a very subtle and humble way. Because that's how you really get your thoughts across. And I think for me, what would make a woman, some of the leadership traits that a woman should have is really being authentic, really being yourself, and understand your emotional intelligence. Because we have a number of challenges where women are given opportunities, and because of certain, things that are happening in those roles that they find themselves in, they sort of get negative feedbacks. But I think for me, what really becomes important is the emotional intelligence of each and every leader, be it women or men. But I think for me, it's more important for women, because we are always, under the microscope. How is she doing? You understand? And I speak, because I have experience. I come from a sector that is very much male dominant, and I lead the chapter in South African Institute of Electrical Engineers that is full of males. It's only 2 females in the leadership position. And we are opening up spaces for those women who are willing to take up the bait and move with the bait. And really to ensure that we get to the gist of things. As women, we need to stay humble and know what we don't know. Because sometimes some people think they know everything and we don't ask. I love what our previous speaker spoke about, asking for help when you need help, because people want to know when you need help. So for me as a woman leader, and I think what we need to understand as women is to have empathy, especially during this time. This is the time where kind leadership comes in very strongly, because the whole world is facing this pandemic. And as a leader, what are you doing? How are you showing up as this kind leader that your team would look up to? So those are the things that I think as women, as we lead and we're growing in the leadership position, we should really looking into those things. Ability to solve challenges and problems. We are sitting with the problem of COVID-19. So we need leaders who've got these critical thinking skills of understanding how to navigate spaces and how to be creative and coming up with creative and innovative ideas that will really serve the country and also serve the global society as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's just music to my ears in terms of, kindness. And I think that comes even, irrespective of whether we're in leadership position or anywhere. And I love the saying that says, if it can be anything in this world, choose kindness, because there is no culture that speaks against being kind. Absolutely no culture that speaks against being kind. So thank you so much for sharing that, and that reinforcing, re-emphasizing the need for us to be kind towards one another, and particularly as leaders is to adopt kind leadership. Thank you. So I'm going to come to you, Norris. We had around, well, over 200, I think that including us is 214 that would be participating here, and we surveyed every single person other than yourself, so we would exclude you just so we get the mathematics right, asking the question if they believed. So it wasn't like, like this is the fact, it's like, do you believe, perceive, think that women make better leaders than men, right? We had 6 say no, so I hope my maths is right. I've put it at 98% of the participant answered yes. I'd like to know, what do you think about that? What do you say to that? If we're all saying we think, we believe or perceive that women make better leaders than men, what do you think about that? I really want to, I'm curious to know what you think. You're muted.
Now that you've slid a landmine under my left foot, let me think about the question about kind. The mention that nobody's against kind obviously has not been on Twitter lately. And judging by Twitter, I'm not sure 98% of humans agree on anything. I'd be sort of curious as to who the 2% were. I'm going to be politically incorrect and say, probably no. It's that every individual has unique skills and experiences, and on balance, I'm not sure that that's a big difference. But in time of crisis, we know that in leadership, the research evidence is, if you have a crisis, things aren't working, do something different. What was it? Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results. It is imperative for organizations and for communities to reach out to new voices, to new experiences, and new skill sets. And this is, if there's a better place to add cognitive diversity to your organization or your community than adding women, I haven't seen that in the research literature. You've seen all the studies that you add women to a team, they get better. Those numbers are not quite 98%, but they're incredibly powerful. So I would say yes, but I'm also, given my training and background, is that it's so important to focus not on the aggregate, but on the individuals. And at the same time, it doesn't matter if you hire someone who is a better leader, male or female, if they don't have the right supportive infrastructure. You have to have the mindset of the organization. And essentially, any organization, a community is like an ecosystem. Is it supportive of what needs to happen or not? That you would hire Winston Churchill and provide the wrong resources and the wrong thinking around him, he would fail. course, being dead also would probably be a negative, but I'm always leery of these things. But I think it's important to realize that people bring more skills. If I've learned anything as an educator, as I've learned anything as a researcher, as I've learned anything as an entrepreneur, is none of us are close to filling our full capacity. Possibly not Tuba, who's spending, doing an insane amount of self-education that I've written down. I have to put that on my to-do list. I got to go take some certificates. Already added that to my to-do list. Is how do we support that? What are the skills, the knowledge, the behaviors, the mindset needed to be effective in a crisis, and how do we support that? And I suspect that I see this in entrepreneurial organizations, that it is predominantly more likely to be someone who is an outsider, partly, that women do step up more than men do. Men like to be, they think resilience is, we're going to stick to our guns and we're going to just keep going. We're going to persevere. And the women are far more likely to pivot. And we do have some evidence that women are a lot better at pivoting, and pivoting correctly, than men are, which I love telling to guys. Is that remotely answering your question?
Yes, because I'm going to throw the spanner in the works here, and I'm going to ask Laurie to comment on the 98%, by the way, Norris, is just our internal poll that we did, rather than a big global. So Norris, well, you heard everything Norris said. So what, as somebody who advocates, on behalf of others, what would you say to this, where 98% of the women we surveyed believe that they make better leaders than men? However, we know that globally, there is, the gap is so wide. So I would love to take your comment on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've all read similar data, and thank you, Norris, for sharing a lot of that. Tina knows that I feel very, very passionate about making a difference in terms of getting more women in upper management leadership roles within organizations, within businesses, on boards, in the political spectrum as well. And I too work in a very male-dominated industry of politics, and it's gotten better, I'd say, in the last maybe 10 years. But more often than not, I'm the only woman in the room, or maybe one of a couple. And it makes a big difference. And I agree with you, Norris, on your assessment about how we define resiliency as men and women. And I don't like to overgeneralize, because I think individualism is really important. But generally speaking, I think resiliency is not always sticking to your guns, like you said, but having the ability to shift and to pivot. And if there's anything we've learned during this pandemic, is our need to be able to do that. And I will say, in my experience politically, the women who are in the room, the women who are either in the elected office or on my side, on the private sector side, I do see them having the ability to shift and and pivot more often, coming up with different ideas, finding a new pathway, finding another solution, as opposed to just stomping your hands on the table and saying, no, this is how we're going to do it. And I don't know why that is, so I can't really speak to that, but I will tell you that I think that there's more collaboration, generally speaking. There are more ideas that are brought to the table. There's more of a sense of finding a solution that folks can agree to when you have women in those leadership roles. So, but I think that crosses outside of politics, that crosses into, board participation, that crosses into leadership within business. I think, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, when there are more women in leadership positions, companies make more money. So even if you don't believe in it because, it's the right thing to do, believe in it because you're going to be more profitable as an organization, as a business. So, no, I think there's a strong case to be made there. Why that is, I don't know. I can't speak to, the DNA of women and why we bring these things to the table, but the numbers speak for themselves. And my experience has certainly been when you have women in leadership positions, there's more collaboration. Like I said, it's just kind of a different approach of, let's find a solution. Okay, if you're not comfortable with what we're doing, let's find a way where we can meet in the middle, as opposed to just trying to demand to get your way. That's just been my experience.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. I just don't know. I wonder what Laurie thinks to that. So thank you for coming in.
Norris has a comment.
Norris, yes.
Well, it reminded me, one of the things that struck me is, there are two things. One is, is be in the room.
Yes.
You have to be in the room to get there, and figuring out how you do that. Because people come in and something's not working, somebody's going to say, hey, maybe let's do something different. Instead of beating each other up, let's collaborate. It seems, well, it's your only choice. But that there's a dynamic that I have some friends in northern Sweden who were interviewing, they were listed with comments of venture capitalists in Sweden who were interviewing entrepreneurial candidates and questioning them. And they weren't looking for this, but what they found was that, the cliche of, oh, he's assertive, she's aggressive. That, dude, how are you going to win? Ma'am, how are you going to not lose? And this is in Sweden, for God's sakes. So they said, they got they got an academic article and a Harvard Business Review about it. And someone said, well, we should try to replicate this. And they went, there's a fund that is required to invest 50% in women-led or co-led ventures. And these guys probably read that HBR article, and they still had the same language issues. And that to me was, I'm happy for my friends getting publications and getting promotions and getting a lot of glory. But if that's happening in Sweden, you can imagine what it's like in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but is there a woman on this panel who hasn't experienced that to some degree? I can tell you I have all the time. If I'm too aggressive, I'm looked at very differently than my male counterparts who are saying the same thing in the same tone in the same meeting with the same people.
Well, hopefully,
and maybe can we figure out how to do something about that? And that's then the real conundrum. We're educating people about this dynamic, but what can any of us do? And I hope maybe the audience will have some answers.
Yes, we hope that by the end of this conversation that we would actually take out some key practical application, because I believe, if we each, it doesn't matter where we're in the world, but if we start, like, the only thing that never changes if we do nothing. But if we can leave, one another with practical application, that we can then go and apply those and begin to sow those seeds of change. I think that in itself is commendable, because it's the great oak tree started as a tiny little seed, but it had to be planted, it had to be nurtured, and eventually we get the acorn. So really what we want to do, because this issue of women in leadership, or getting more women in leadership, it's like a ginormous ship, right? And it's going to take a lot of effort. We're probably not going to be able to turn the ship by the end of tonight, but the idea is to equip one another with ways where we can begin to turn ourselves. We can be empowered to actually go and apply for that role, step up, show up to the boardroom, no longer hiding. Well, you are going to be sharing those rather than me. I'm here to facilitate. So Tuba, I want to come to you. There's this general belief, we had, as at Tuesday afternoon, we had over 70 plus questions from women within the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and it was just like almost the same question, but asked differently with different words, but interpreted the same. And I really found myself like, you know, thinking, oh my gosh, like I've heard of that, but I haven't lived that, you know, I haven't lived that. So it's like, okay, how do we begin to work that? And really the question that was coming was, you know, there is this general belief that a woman's place is not in the decision making and workplaces, but rather is that, you know, a woman's place is being at home. And I know you're an incredible mom, you're a business leader, an advisor, you sit in many, many boardrooms, and you have one of the most powerful voices that I know, you know, and I really look up to you. So I wanted to share with us, what would you say to a woman who holds that belief? Because I believe if that is a belief we already hold, that becomes a limitation in you know, in actually stepping up or taking that step. So what would be your advice to a woman who holds that belief? And also what can be done, right, to get them or to get more women in the boardroom or at the boardroom table?
So first of all, I look up to you. You know, your amazing work and your incredible spirit. That's what lifts me up. If, you know, I could approach this from 3 angles, if I may be allowed, not trying to be politically incorrect, but especially in the Middle East, and you can see in the chat as well, there is an angle that's from religion and culture mix. The second one is the perception of ability versus inability. And the third is gender bias, right? So when I look at these 3 angles as to how it's, I never thought I would be in a boardroom with investors who are family business, they're investing into billions of dollars, that they would trust me with a vote that would set the direction of a company going forward. Because in my early years, when I was chief and I was chief of strategy in one of the organizations, I remember making a presentation to the board and they said, oh, but you're but a woman. You haven't lived through actually, you know, doing the work it requires to reach the bottom line. You are not the CEO. And you don't know what's involved, so please don't tell us what to do. And that was the chairman. And I was so offended, I remember, and he said, and even though in religion, you know, there needs to be 2 women as witnesses that are, you know, attesting to the same thing that 1 man attests to. He said that and I blew a fuse. I just turned back and I said, I'm resigning in an hour, but before I go, I'd like you to remember the prophet's wife was his boss. He worked for her for over 20 years before he became a prophet. And she was the richest woman in all of Arabia. And guess what? Her name was Khadija and she's my role model. And if you can't attest to that, which is your religion where there are 4 surahs named after women, Maryam, you know, we have a surah in the Quran named woman. There isn't a surah named men. So if you don't understand that, that's your problem. And I walked out. Of course, he was heavily offended. And guess what? When we run into each other today and he sees I'm on almost 45 boards today, and he just looks up and says, he throws up his hands in the air. He has nothing to say. He can't say anything. And I'm always the main host and he's a guest. So it's just too funny. Anyway, so these things happen in life. And the second one is about ability. Now, what makes you get chosen to be on a board seat? And it's not the gender, it's not a quota. It's your ability to drive decisions and to allow others. I'm a great storyteller in a boardroom. I can make people see angles of the business that they wouldn't otherwise see. And to reach that ability, I had to teach myself several things, operations, quality control, financial statements, how to do financial projections, financial planning. And I'm not a financial person. By any means do I mean accounting. No, I'm talking about business financials, cash flow, reading investor relations, stakeholder relations, how to grasp strategy, consumer mindset, customer acquisition. When you talk about technical aspects, people sort of don't see you as a woman anymore. They listen to you because you make sense. And to be able to make sense, you really need to get your gear together, your ability to voice it. I swear to you, Tina, and those who know me know this, I was a silent person till I was 35. I only became outspoken as I couldn't handle it anymore because I used to see bad decisions being made in front of me, not speaking up, ate away at me. I would be like, how could they do this? They know this is going to take us north. And yet the guy who did that would get promoted and I would be looked down at not performing. And I'm not the decision maker, he is. So his decision would hit all the employees. So I started to speak up. And that really helped. Third thing is gender bias. We have that in every country across the world. Nations have put down gender quotas. I know you have done it all across Europe. Forcing people to hire women on boards is not going to be of any help. What I would like to have is something I like to call positive bias, and which Lori just a moment ago attested to. All the research, all the data shows bottom line of companies with diversity, with inclusivity, with collaboration, with teamwork, with horizontal and flat structures work. How to carry this learning across 200 countries? Well, as Dr. Norris rightly said earlier on, 98% of people agree on what? What do we agree on? If we can find 5% of people to agree on the same thing, we're great. But here's the deal. These are global companies, Google, Microsoft, Apple. They are doing it. And because they're doing it, others are going to be 20 years. Everything takes patience. All we need is a bit of time, never lose hope. I started my life, I wasn't able to drive in my country. Now I am. My daughters will never know the difference. They'll start, their lives. And it's in every country. I know countries where women were still not allowed to vote till last year. And some of the countries in Africa, what women go through. There is segregation, and sometimes it's even caste segregation, like it happens in India. It's among men. And let's agree on something. Office politics is office politics. Men dig after men, women dig after women. It has nothing to do with gender. People just want to get that next promotion. And you need to live up to it. You need to be able to prove you are the better person, you deserve it. It's because of your results. Being result oriented. I think, earlier on, Lori was mentioning, why women are better at it. It's because we're three things. We're nurturing. We understand how something works. I mean, for God's sake, we have 9 months of giving birth. We understand process. And you need to understand process when it comes to business. And we deliver on it, right? So that's in our nature, second nature to us. And I think, being supportive to whether it's our male colleagues or female patriarchs is very important, but that's what it takes. And I'm hoping, religion, culture, everything aside, we should see more women in the boardroom if countries transparently announce the performance of those companies when it comes to their bottom lines. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love that. We understand process and we deliver on it. That's just gold, right? That's a tweetable moment. I hope the team are catching that and, sharing that with the world. Thank you so much for, really speaking authentically. We need more of that, in our world today as leaders. So, Laurie, I'm just going to come to you and then we're going to pick some of the general questions, and the Q&A is building up as well. And the engagement amongst the participants is like, oh my gosh, it's exciting. And I think we're on track because some of the conversation is that, that was amazing. Thank you, Tuba, and saying spoken with truth. So I think we're resonating with what the majority of us are feeling. So Laurie, I want to look at. I'm just going to bump this question together because although it's being separated, I think they all go hand in hand. For example, women may not generally be given freedom of speech, or when they speak, they're not considered as authentic. And whether that's I guess it depends from boardroom to boardroom, but like you said, all of us as women have experienced, you know, at one point during our leadership journey of not being viewed as authentic, even when we're speaking our truth. Also this issue of, you know, emotions, logic, and I think they're all sometimes used against us as, oh, you know, I'm not too sure because you're being too emotional. I'm not too sure because, you know, your hormones or whatever that is. What do you say to that? You know, how can we encourage women to not be put off by these, you know, words or views or opinions of not being seen as emotionally intelligent or as not being authentic, or, you know, how can we empower women to not be put off by those and still be able to move forward in leadership?
Absolutely. Thank you. So, you know, I'm going to agree so much with what Tuba had to say. What I do in my business is when I'm advocating on behalf of my clients, I have to make my case to legislators, to elected officials. And I am always, always, always going back to data. Everything I do is data driven. And I think that as long as you stick with that, and you have to do good storytelling, you have to do all of that with it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the data. And as you know, I think that we can make a difference as women. Norris said something earlier about being in the room. Yes, absolutely, we have to be in the room. But I believe, and I think Tuba mentioned this earlier, I don't believe that we need to have seats set for us. I think that it's really important, because I don't believe in that. I want a seat because I earned that seat. So it's about proving yourself. It's about knowing what you're talking about. It's about having that experience. I don't want a seat because I have a certain gender. I want a seat because I deserve that seat. And if there's not a seat there, I'm going to drag the chair into the room with me and find a space there, because that is the way that you get a seat at the table, is not to check a box. You get a seat at the table because you earned a seat at the table and because you deserve to be there. Now, look, the whole issue of emotions, I think that can be very challenging sometimes. I don't think that women need to put aside who we are as people. I don't believe in hiding your emotions, but I believe as you become more experienced, as you look at your emotional intelligence, you have the ability to focus on what it is, the activity that you're doing at the time. And as long as you're doing that and you are able to communicate in a way that is data-driven and you've got all your facts together, I think the emotion, I think it actually can be helpful when you do it in the right way, and when you speak with empathy, and you have good storytelling, and you have the ability to make things relatable for people. I think that's actually a positive difference that we can make. For me, I think it's just about developing a thick skin, right? Like, if someone wants to say that I'm being too aggressive or I'm bitchy or whatever it is you want to say about me, I don't really care. And you just need to get yourself to that point, build your confidence enough that it won't matter. I mean, that's what I teach my girls. You know, that's a really hard lesson you teach your children when they're growing up. You know, you're not going to be everyone's favorite person. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not always going to be invited in the room for the meeting for whatever reason. But I need to not take that personally and understand that there's a reason for these things. And I think the more that we can just develop that and not let it bother us. If we let it bother us, that's when they win, right? That's a skill we teach our kids, right? Like, don't show them they're upsetting you, sort of thing. So I think that emotions don't have to be bad. You just need to manage them, and you need to use them to your benefit with the right people at the right time in the right way. You earn your seat at the table. It shouldn't be given to you. And it's okay to have emotions. It's okay. We are complex people. We do a lot of things in our lives. We aren't just siloed as businesswomen, as parents, as caregivers for our aging parents. You know, we are very complex. We have a lot on our plates. We wear a lot of hats. Tina, you said that earlier. I feel like I change my hat every 30 minutes some days. And, you know, that's okay. And that's going to make us emotional. But when it comes to business and it comes to what you are managing, stick with the facts. Don't let the criticism get to you. You know, at the end of the day, it's about just having that thick skin and persevering always. And you know what, if there's something that's going on, or you're in an organization that it continues to be a problem, then that's maybe not where you're supposed to be. Maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing, and recognizing and accepting that as a gift. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to, like, you know, move really thinking back to that same situation of like emotions as leaders not being taken or seen as authentic and everything. And Wendy, I want you to share with us just really in that, like, holding this question brings us to like resilience, because that's what I heard from, you know, Laurie, is that we like develop a thick skin, which is being resilient, right? Resilient as a woman, resilient as a leader, and not really being bothered by what, you know, some of these words that I think we've all, you know, had it thrown at us at one point in our life. So what really is resilient leadership? How can women be resilient? And I think it really comes, there was another general question, that how can women exude confidence, you know, so freely? Because it's like, again, I guess these come because it's like, well, you know, they don't see it as confident or whatever, for whatever reason. So what would you say, how can women build or become resilient as leaders?
You know, personally, I think, you know, when you think about resilience, right, you know, it's really hard to just say, oh, I'm resilient, right? You really need to go through life, and you really need to dedicate yourself in building your own, you know, confidence by working, by trying, by doing whatever you can. I mean, I always say to people, like, you know, everyone asks me like, oh my God, how did you create Animal Fair, right? Like, and how did you create a movement when nobody cared about animal rescue? When I launched Animal Fair and 12 million animals were euthanized a year and nobody was talking about adoption. But I knew that everyone in the world wants to help. You just have to make it really easy for them, right? And how do you create change? From the ground up, by engaging everyone and simplifying the message, right? And so, you know, through, like, what I say to people is always have, you know, with whatever you're going to do in life, have a passion for it and have purpose. And not just, you know, see something on TV, but go experience, go take that drive to see what you're really helping, whether it's helping animals, whether it's helping, you know, impoverished women, whatever that is. So you really have a drive inside you that whatever happens is going to keep you going, right? And so, you know, passion, purpose, pluck, that's a funny word. I don't know if everybody's heard of that word, but pluck's like, get back up, right? Like, if someone's going to knock you down, get back up. I mean, in my career, you know, I've had bullies. I had a major stalker in my life that pretty much I survived, but really ruined my life in 2012. But that was the greatest gift in the world, because it enabled me to go on vacation in the murder capital of the world in Honduras, to volunteer for an organization that inspired me to create, you know, to create Women's Entrepreneurship Day that we're celebrated now in 144 countries, with the US Congress proclaiming the day on November 19th, and Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio having a huge team in Africa, Yolanda, that we have the greatest people in the world that volunteer, because I knew by creating a simplified movement, right, and giving people the toolkit to make a difference in their community, right, and engaging them to say, listen, let's bring governments, and let's bring, you know, corporations, and let's bring civil society together to collaborate, to find solutions to uplift women in business. And by doing this stuff and really volunteering my time and dedicating my time to doing this and getting beaten up, like when we launched Women's Entrepreneurship Day in 2013, and then in 2014, we launched at the United Nations, a huge organization appropriated our day, literally threw me under the bus, took our name and appropriated our day. Right? And so, because they didn't have any initiative to support women in business, right? And what did they want to, you know, so basically what happened, you know, all positive in life, right? Whether you know it in a day, a year, in 10 years, everything you do in life, whatever you do, whether you're like, oh my God, this is like the worst thing that happened, there's a reason you're going through it. And there's a reason you're doing that, right? And because of that, you know, I've personally built unbelievable resilience because I'm not about fame, money, or power. Things that really are not the most positive things in the world, right? And it's all about like, how can, you know, personally, like, how can I make a difference in the world to help people, whether it's one person, whether it's millions of people, but really going through that and spending, you know, a lot of time in whatever you're doing, you're going to learn and you're going to grow and you're going to go through things that builds inside of you to say to yourself, keep going, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, whether, you know, if you're on your deathbed tomorrow and you're looking at your life, it's not about like, oh my God, I accumulated so much money in the bank. Oh my God. No, it's like, what did you do in the world? You know, like, how did you make this world a better place? And that's what people are, whether it's having a family, whether it's creating a business, whether it's helping people, whether it's curing cancer, whatever that might be, right? And I think it's just really going back to the whole points of passion and purpose and really just finding what really drives you, because that's going to build the resilience inside you.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to come to, I'm really conscious of our time as well. And I've seen a question in the Q&A, which actually we already have that. So I'm going to bring that question to you, Yolanda. And that is, you know, if we think like Africa, the role of the family, like what your family say, what your family think of you, it's not always easy to ignore, right? And even the community. I remember if we were out of line on the way home from school, any adult whatsoever could discipline you before you even got to your parents, like literally, right? So again, as a female, as a woman, and building resilience, what is the role of the community and the family in empowering women to take leadership, but also knowing that we almost have to be this resilient, right? In either not being moved, put off by what the family think or whatever is. And the other side of the question, again, looking at resilient leadership, is in the Q&A, this one person is asking about what do you do when like your family or your husband, like you're afraid of stepping into leadership because maybe you get married and your husband wouldn't support your vision, which is, again, I'm roping all of that into family. So Yolanda, if you like, family community is a big deal in Africa. How can, or what is the role of the family, the community in empowering women to take leadership, but also really empowering the women to be resilient? How does all of that, you know, work?
Thank you so much for that question, Dr. Tina, because I think in making sure that we have a successful economy that is developed, everything starts within the family. It starts with the decisions that are made within the family and it moves into the communities. Then for me, what becomes a priority is creating awareness, because in Africa, and I would also speak for South Africa, we still have the mentality of, you know, women belongs into the kitchen. You should not, you know, try and develop yourself because you are trying to make yourself a man. Are you trying to be a man now, or have you forgotten that you're a woman? So if we, as women who are also coming up into, you know, leadership positions, we should create the awareness around men. We should take men with us throughout the journey of transformation so that they understand that, look, things have changed, times have changed, and they should change with times too. And those things should also be made clear, especially within the leadership of communities and societies. For instance, we have a project that we run, it's an agriculture project, and we're focusing on women development. But who we really connect with are the chiefs, because the chiefs are the leaders of their communities. If we change their minds, we are able to get into the minds of other men within the societies, because the chief is going to be the change agent on the things that you want to do. They will be the lead in changing or transforming the societies. And I think in also going back to being resilient as a woman who is finding themselves in a situation whereby it's difficult to become who you are because you are being questioned, because you feel like you are being too much. It really boils down to understanding your power as a woman. I think most of the time women underestimate the power that they have, and they give away their power to their spouses, to the society, or to whoever that they feel they're threatened by. And I think it's high time that women change and sort of take back their power, retain their power. If your spouse does not want you to develop or to conquer, and do things that you want to do, I think being open about that, speaking to them and telling them, look, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. And I need your support. And really, if they don't want to support, for me, I believe as women, we need to go after our dreams, because our daughters, I'm a mother of 3. I've got 2 daughters and 1 boy. And I know my daughters are looking up to me. If I sort of try and make sure that I succumb to certain behaviors and treatment, I'm teaching them to do the same thing. We can't, and unfortunately in our culture, we are told to persevere, to endure when you're in a marriage. If a man is doing this to you, persevere, endure, because you're a woman. Those times have changed because people are dying through that, advice of persevere, endure. At the end of the day, we are facing a high number of gender-based violence because of those things. And this is the time us as women need to change those norms and those understanding. And how do we ensure we do those things? We put women who have stories that are inspiring to tell their stories and allow other women to be inspired by those stories. And I think if you the question that says, how do we make sure that women exude confidence? For me, it goes back to understanding the person within you, understanding who you are, understanding your power, and understanding how to navigate spaces and how to discern good spaces and bad spaces as women, and really making sure that we make our voices heard. We integrate systems that are not integrated, because we find a number of people doing things not because they know what they're doing. It's because truly they have not received the awareness of saying, look, what you are doing is wrong. You are abusing this woman, or what you are saying to this woman is demeaning. You understand? So creating those awareness in our societies, in our communities, call the leaders in a community hall, speak to them, make them understand that this is the way to live. This is the way to lead at the end of the day, because we are raising boys as well. So if we keep up with this pattern, it is also damaging to these boys as well. So these are the things that we've got to be vocal about, and I know it's uncomfortable. And I didn't mention that I'm also the leader for African development for women, and that speaks to different countries. And we empower not only women and boys as well, because if we leave boys behind, we're allowing the pattern to go on forever and ever. But if we take the boy child and make them understand and make them part of the process so that they understand, because the next generation will be looking up to them. So for me, really, it's all about communication, because again, as a leader, if you don't communicate, your people won't know how you are doing and where you are going. For me, communication and bringing everybody on board into the transformation rather, so that we are all on the same page and we understand what the vision is and how the societies can grow, because gender inequality does not only affect women, it affects economies of our countries. And if we can understand that as business people, I think we'd have a better treatment within the genders, address in the global community. So that's really what I think should be done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'm going to throw the final question whilst Norris is answering his questions. Ladies, you can be thinking about this. So the final question is really, I want to take from you your best advice. What is your best thinking, again, with regards to, leadership for women from a practical application perspective, but really, practical application. But the question is, and we have that in the Q&A as well, which is the women hate on other women. Like there is so much competition. We don't like to support other women. We'd rather support a man than another woman, especially when we're in a position of leadership. So I'm sure that all of us here at this table, we understand the vital importance of collaboration, and how much more growth, how much more acceleration, how much more we stand to gain by collaborating. So what would be your best advice, thinking and in a practical, applicable way, for a woman to encourage and empower them towards a more collaborative mindset? That is the final question. I'll come to each of you for a minute, whilst Norris is answering his question. Be thinking about that, so that by the time we come to you, you're all ready. So Norris.
Well, they in English, in the US, they call it the queen bee syndrome, that people who, from an underrepresented group, not just women, they get theirs and they have difficulty. They think, well, if I did it, then anyone else can. And sometimes there's an advantage to being that, that token. You get to be in the room, that it's a perverse dynamic that probably makes perfect sense, when we were living in caves, but it's something that we have to deal with. But I think it's about, and Lori touched on this, Wendy touched on this, that it's about experiences. And the one thing that I thought of, really the first thing I thought of when you asked me to do this is, back in the dawn of time, I'm going to recommend a book from 1988 out of the Center for Creative Leadership that we're studying in 1988, Lessons of Experience. What characterizes a great leader? First thing it says, okay, we're going to compare leaders who made it and those who got derailed. This crowd will not understand. The first thing they found was everybody got derailed. Everybody gets screwed over. Everybody screws up multiple times. They were smart enough to say, okay, let's lean into that. That what they looked at, what they were finding out, thousands of people they were looking at, from not just business, but sports, politics, everywhere, that there was a relatively short list of experiences that they all shared, with like 20 some different experiences. Experiences were less important though than the lessons that you took away from them. But there were a lot of things that those experiences, that they hired someone, that they had to train someone. It wasn't firing, but reprimanding turned out to be a much more pivotal sort of skill. Did you run, were you ever in charge of something? Did you fix something you broke? Did you fix something that somebody else broke? That, again, having the experiences was not enough. They have to take away the right lessons, and that's where mentoring and coaching and supporting. That I think in every step of my career, I've done something incredibly stupid, and everybody thought, and I couldn't understand why everybody around me was laughing. They said, because everybody makes that mistake. And it is now, kid, what did you learn from that? And we're not terribly good as humans at learning from our mistakes. And we're dreadful at learning from success. Every month I talk to some entrepreneur who basically says, my business is really successful. I must be a god. And it's like, no. The gods will let you know that's not true. But what you can do is, and I was intrigued by this Lessons of Experience study, because I thought that has great applicability to entrepreneurs. And I talked to them and they said, you'd need a completely different list for entrepreneurs. But hint, hint, you should go do that study. And all you need is about $500,000 to actually pull it off, which I didn't have. But this thought of if you're going to be a leader, and especially the people who don't have imposter syndrome, maybe, is have them go through these experiences, help them to take away the right lessons. You can take the right lesson from a failed effort, and you can take the wrong lesson away from a successful one. This is where the coaching and guidance, I think, is incredibly important. You think about, California is already finding that requiring female board members isn't working out. The Norwegians, for all their egalitarianism, it's not working there. But Norwegians are smart enough to think, okay, how do we help people to learn the right lessons? And I think if we could figure out a way to coach people to make sure they take away the lessons, I know I could learn a lot from Tuba about being on a board, including when to be on the board and when not to be on the board. And I think there's something that the nations of women could actually, develop something akin to this that would help everyone. I really like that. And there's a hint, and it was supposed to be a PR stunt, but I believe it was Siemens Corp decided they'd have a second shadow board of directors that got all the same information as the regular board, just in a different room. Oh, they were all under 35. In fact, most of them were under 30. They were hotshot young employees. And at first, the young board, dreadful would be pretty accurate. But within 6 months, the junior board was making pretty much the same decisions the wise old guys were reaching. In fact, when they disagreed, Siemens found out the junior board made better decisions, which of course ended up killing the program. But it's the people can learn very, very quickly, whether it's at board of directors or whether it's in that corporate setting. I think, what are those critical experiences and what are the critical lessons that you take away? Because it's not just adding knowledge, it's not about adding skill, it's about mindset, it's about changing mindset, changing behavior. And we know from education that's really important. We could start with the lessons of experience list, but I think there's something that nations when the people on this panel could easily do better. I mean, 1988, in a while. So I'm thinking that's how you get there, and that way we were, instead of saying, I'm not going to be nice to the people who are coming along. We're not going to hate each other. There is a valuable role of being that mentor, being a true mentor, not just somebody famous with the big ego. That you're adding value, and it's something that organizations can reward. I'm stunned by corporations that are terrible. They almost punish great mentors within their organization. Yeah. We can do better. We will do better. Absolutely. And I'm, and possibly we can find something. Center for Creative Leadership made a crap ton of money on this project, so that might be a good idea for nations of women too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I love that. One of the critical things we can do is to be a true mentor to other women as well. So I'm going to come to you, Tuba, please. What's your advice, your best thinking, tips from a practical application perspective on empowering women to adopt a collaborative mindset towards the journey as a leader?
First of all, a great collaborative panel example today. I think we all learned from each other. I learned a lot, and thank you once again for having me. I think I would have 4 things very quickly. Be the person you want your kids to remember and your grandkids to write down on their essays is that's our legacy. That's my grandma. And you have to live for a legacy. As was said earlier, passion, purpose are great, but some people may have passion to cook great, but they're not leaving any legacy to be remembered with. It's important to have a legacy with what you do. And second, be positive. Spread positivity. And people want to see people that are positive around them. So if you want people to let you in on their companies, allow you to be on their boards, you have to learn to exuberate positivity. Third, stay attuned, be a futurist. You have to learn where the world is going to be at in 2050, 2100. And you really, you know, the year 2050 is only tomorrow. It's that close. Time flies fast, and you have to be ready for it and prepare your family for it. And that goes for your company. Being futurist means you're willing to take risks to stay afloat. And the one thing, if I ever ask anyone to walk away with, is what Yolanda hinted to earlier on, is be approachable, be humble. No one in the world knows everything. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, it just means be ready to you know, keep young people around you, learn from them, because they have a different know-how, and always go back to the old generation and learn from them. We'll only survive this planet and the 3,000 years ahead if we have it, you know, if we support each other and learn from each other. And business is just one part of it. Sustainability, living together, collaboration. I think if we learned one thing, in Arabic we have a saying, one damage brings 1,000 better things. So COVID was one damage. If we learned one thing, a tiny invisible thing was able to make us all collaborate towards getting the same inoculations, the same medical protocols, the same data exchanges, scientists from different countries coming together. That, I think, is the pinnacle of collaboration COVID has taught us. So let's maintain that. And thank you for having me, Tina. And thank you for all the participants who watched us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much as well. I really appreciate you. And Laurie, please, your best thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with what anyone has said here. I think everyone has such wonderful advice and guidance. You know, this whole issue of women hating each other and hating on each other is very frustrating. And this queen bee syndrome, yes, it's real. And I've experienced it. I'm sure many others have as well. It's totally unnecessary. I think that so long as we make changes within ourselves to not treat others that way. And I don't even know that it's gender. I mean, sometimes I think it deals with age, it deals with not just gender, you know, oh, you're too young, you don't understand what you're talking about. I've been doing this for 40 years sort of mentality. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, but just to make sure that we as leaders don't continue that way of thinking and that way of treating each other. You know, I try to make a very conscious effort to just to focus on connection. How do you build that connection with other women, other rising leaders within your organization, whatever that may be? You know, invest your time, invest your energy, get to know who they are, get to know where they want to be, you know, encourage them, be vocal about it, stay connected with them, and create a space where they know that you want to reach down and lift them up into the higher leadership ranks. And just sometimes just knowing that someone is there and being that person will make a huge, huge difference. And Tuba mentioned this, you know, respecting what their opinions are on things. I mean, you know, just accepting that, you know, I don't know everything. And, you know, I'm of a different generation than some other people who are rising in leadership are. And gosh, maybe we can learn a lot from them. And they've got a different way of thinking. They've got a different way of doing things. And I think really just focusing on that connection, getting over yourself, right? Just get over yourself. You're not the expert of everything. You don't know everything. You should know everything. And just providing that space for people and being there and saying, hey, you can do it. I know you can do it. Let me know how I can help you. And I think you can help me too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Tina, for having me. It's been great. Wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Thank you. And Wendy, please.
So hating, woo! I have so many haters and I have so many people that want me down because why? I'm happy. You know, that's a decision we make every morning when you wake up. It's a state of mind. You say whether you're happy or sad, right? And so, you know, my whole life I've kind of been like this, and I've had a lot of people hate me and that kind of stuff. And I don't really care, because what you have to do is surround yourself with people that support you, right? And not, you know, I always say to people, like, you know, go for 100 people. And you know what? You try to be friends with 100 people, and maybe you get a couple, and you're going to be so lucky, right? And I always say to people, like, you know, never lose your inner child. Always have that sense of wonderment, excitement, curiosity, right? Because everyone in the world is an expert at something. They could be a novice or an expert, a real expert, right? But everyone has something to teach you, right? And I always say, you know, one of the things I do in life, whoever I talk to or whatever I get involved with, I always leave that person, that thing, with something positive, right? That they could learn from, or that I could help them with, or whatever that might be. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's the greatest gift, is to give, right? Yeah. And it's the greatest, and the feeling you will get by giving someone your time, your energy, your advice, right? And I always, like, you know, I surround myself with people that are really young, and really, I love old people too. I love them. And like, cause they're all so interesting, and they all bring so much to your life, and engage you, right? In what you're doing. And, you know, I'll say that, you know, literally, I'm not saying like, oh my God, every day is great, you know, cause every day, well, I try to make it every day great, but you know, you're always going to have that negative stuff that comes into your life. And it's in your mind that you have to realize, whoa, I'm not going to go there, because you know what? I'm grateful for XYZ, right? And I've got this person in my life, so who cares what they're saying, right? And I think that's really what's so important. And it goes back to resilience and about confidence in the whole thing, right? And, you know, one thing I would say is, you know, it starts from the ground up, yes. Right? Because what happens is women, like some, you know, we all know them, like I know a little too many of them, you know, they're not nice when they get really successful, because they fought so hard to get there. I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, they're fighting. And then they're like, whoa, I worked so hard. You know, I'm not going there. Like, you know, I worked so hard. You got to go work so hard, right? Versus the fact that just, you know, be able to give our chance to people from a ground up approach. Yes. I will do one thing, is on December 2nd, we're launching Choose Women. And it's our foundation, Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization. We're launching an initiative the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, because the way to create change is simplifying it, right? And allowing everyone to participate. And by bringing from, like, when children are young, to understand the fact that you don't have to fight so hard, right? And it's not like, you know, 1,000 years ago when, you know, men had to do all the work because they were stronger, right? They had to build everything and do everything. Now it's all in our minds, right? We're in an equal playing field now. We can all participate. It's up to us, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to support people. And so anyways, Choose Women, December 2nd, whether you're a woman in business, finance, art, politics, whatever it might be, we're asking the world to choose what woman inspired them and share the story. Because I think at the end of the day, those two words, everyone won't be confused, right? And it's a simplified way to celebrate women in our lives, and to show everybody, you know, choose whoever it is, but to show and the world why it's so important to choose women. So if we do that and everyone realizes why it's so important, and we don't have to fight so hard, hopefully there'll be less hate. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we choose more than one? Thank you so much. Can we choose more than one? Because I'm looking at like 4 women here that I've got, you know, I'm going to choose, because I'm in your fan clubs, all of you. So if we can choose more than one, I'm happy.
Yeah, you could do it. You could do it every day, and you could start today. But go to choosewomen.org, and you'll see like what we're doing and everything like that. And no one's taking credit. We partnered with Bartle Bogle Hegarty, one of the biggest advertising agencies owned by Publicis, who's doing all the creative stuff, as well as Creatives for Kindness. And literally, it's one of the coolest things you're going to see that's going to come out. You're going to see the creative behind it, and it's all volunteer work, and we're loving it. And it's so much fun, and it's the greatest people. And hope you all will be partners in Nations of Women as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's what we do best, is, you know, really collaborating and supporting one another. So thank you for that opportunity to participate. Yolanda, give us your best thinking, and then we can say goodbye to each other.
Absolutely. It's funny that you've mentioned that, because early this year, just before COVID, we hosted a global conversation around female leadership. And one of the things that came out is exactly that, the pool head Down syndrome. And women were really complaining about women not opening up spaces for each other and really taking each other down in a very, 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 ugly way, because we all want to grow. We all want to find ourselves in spaces where we will be able to empower and impact change. And I think for me, what I would leave as an advice is that as women, we should embrace change and embrace diversity, because we are diverse in many ways. And even the attitude of the one who's pulling others down is the diversity. And therefore you need to exemplify what you want to see in the world. So if I don't want to see women pulling each other down, I must be the one who's actually lifting others so that they can see, actually, what I'm doing, it's actually not building, it's actually destroying other women. How can I learn? And again, it goes with the teachable spirit, because I always go to any environment with the spirit of being able to learn, of being able to be taught, because I believe we learn every day as human, not only as women. So I would say to women, look, let people mock you, let them talk about you. And it's true, people will disappoint you. And some of those people will be women and they will mistreat you. But what you need to make sure is that your vision remains and your vision does not get tainted because of that behavior. Teach them the right way of leading. Teach them the right way of impacting the change, because I believe we are here to all, as Tuba said, we want to leave legacies. Whatever we do today, we want people or our great grandkids to talk about it when we're not even on this world. We want to be courageous, we want to be authentic. And as women, authenticity for me is the best, because I always show up as who I am. I don't have to wear different masks and different, I can wear a mask for COVID, but I can't wear a mask to hide who I am, the person, the leader that I am. So the journey is long. We need each other as women. We need each other as humans to change, because I myself have experienced that a number of times. But what I said I will respond to that is through opening greater doors for those who come after me, for those who are alongside me, and for those who are ahead of me. Because sometimes you find people who are ahead of you, but they've got doors that they can't unlock. I'll unlock those doors and leave them open for others to come and knock. Even sitting on the BRICS, platform, most women are saying, how do I get there? And what I've done as Yolanda, as a leader, as I spoke to my chairman, I said, I want more women on board. I want more businesses to be represented, because I want them to experience, that level, to have exposure of different kinds of dialogue and decisions that are made. So he said, look, I want you to come in and introduce the list of women you want on board. So this is just an example of saying, even to the next women that I'm empowering, they must do the same. It is all about paying it forward so that we all get the slice of the pie at the end of the day. So let's keep going out there. Let's keep changing the world. Let's keep loving on each other. Let's keep creating those tables. If the door is closed, open a window, let them come in and be empowered. That's just what I believe in as a leader and a woman leader.
Thank you. Like, we've gone way over our time. I didn't want to cut any of you short, but I think we're going to be back again with round 2, really focusing on the imposter syndrome and expanding the table for women. So thank you. You have heard it from the panelists. From here, if there's one thing you can do, you have an abundance of what to do. Don't let what people say put you off from what you can do. Norris has shared, learn from your success, but most importantly, learn from every mistake or any situation. And we've all been screwed over, but you've got to be able to get up again. And Wendy, I love what you said. It's like, be positive. There's so many people who would hate you. My mom always used to say, look, even if you lay flat for people to walk on you, you would get somebody who would still complain you're not flat enough. So, haters will hate, but don't let that stop who you can be. And Tuba, I love what you talked about, don't work, be the woman that works towards, what you desire. Leave a legacy. Don't just do for the sake of doing, but think about what legacy can I create. And if there's anything at all I want to leave with you, it's like, be an authentic leader, be yourself, because there's nobody like you, and that is your power. So thank you. I'm sorry we've run out of time. We're going to send all the other extra questions that came into our wonderful panelists, and I'm sure they will answer those, and we will share those with you through our social media outlet, but also we will send a summary and a takeout from this webinar via email to each and every one of you. So thank you again for being with us. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you all. If anybody wants a certificate, because I know some of you have been asking, please send an email to now@nationsofwomen.com, and we will be able to issue a certificate for you to add to your CPD. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and all our wonderful participants. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you on social media. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.